Okay, let's talk about some of the most common and maybe the worst advice you've ever gotten. And I'm not just making this up. This all comes from the incredible research in the book StrengthsFinder 2.0. You know the one I'm talking about. We've all heard it a million times. It's plastered on posters, it's the big line in every underdog movie. And look, it sounds great, right? It's supposed to make you feel like the only thing between you and your dreams is just a little more hard work. But what if it's just wrong? Seriously, what if that well-intentioned feel-good advice is actually setting us up for a struggle, pushing us down the hardest possible road, a path of just constant resistance? And that leads us right into something the research calls the weakness trap. You know exactly what this is. It's this deep-seated obsession we have with finding what's wrong with us and then spending all our energy trying to fix it. I mean, just think about the stories we love. The movie Rudy is a perfect example. Here's a guy who, through just sheer grit and thousands of hours of practice, finally gets to play for a few seconds and makes a single tackle. We hold that up as this amazing achievement. But what are we really celebrating? The struggle itself. We're celebrating fixing a deficit instead of building on a gift. And this whole mindset, it gets drilled into us from day one. Get this, a Gallup poll found that a staggering 77% of parents in the US think their kids should spend the most time on their worst subjects. So you get an A in math and a C in history. What happens? All the focus goes to history. It's like we punish excellence with neglect and reward weakness with all of our attention. Kind of backward, isn't it? So, what's the actual cost of this? Well, when this fix your weaknesses mindset hits the real world, especially at work, the consequences are huge. We're talking about a massive problem with disengagement. And I mean massive. Gallup has talked to more than 10 million people all over the world about this. The result? Only about 1/3 of them, just 1 in 3, strongly agree that they get to do what they do best every single day. Think about that. That means 2/3 of the people you work with, maybe even you, feel like their best talents are just sitting on a shelf collecting dust. Now, here's where it gets really mind-blowing. For that small group of people who do get to use their strengths every day, the difference is just off the charts. They are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. Not a little bit, 600%. And it's not just about work. They're also 3 times more likely to say they have an excellent quality of life overall. This is a game changer. And check this out. This chart really shows you how much your boss matters. So if your manager pretty much ignores you, there's a 40% chance you're actively disengaged. That's the nice way of saying you're miserable and probably making everyone around you miserable too. Okay, what if they focus on your weaknesses? Well, it's better, down to 22%. But look at this last number. If your manager focuses on your strengths, the chance of being actively disengaged drops to 1%. 1. It's practically a cure for workplace misery. Okay, so we've established the problem. Focusing on weakness is a trap. So what's the way out? It's a totally different way of thinking. It's all about understanding and using the power of your strengths. But first, we need to be clear about what we're even talking about. Let's start with talent. A talent isn't something you learn from a book. It's how you're naturally wired. It's that default way you think or feel or act. It's the raw stuff you're working with from the get-go. And that brings us to the super important formula. See, a strength isn't just the talent itself. A strength is what you get when you take that raw talent and you add investment. And investment is just things like practice, learning new skills, gaining knowledge. But here's the absolute key. The talent part is a multiplier. The more natural talent you start with, the bigger the payoff you get from all that hard work. Let's make this real. Go back to Rudy. On a simple 1 to 5 scale, let's say his natural talent for football was a 2. But his investment, his effort, a total 5. So 2 times 5 gets your strength potential of 10. Okay, not bad. But now, picture another player on the team. Let's say this guy is just naturally gifted, a 5 in talent, and he works just as hard as Rudy, so 5 in investment. What's 5 times 5? It's 25. That's the difference. That is the power of the talent multiplier. When you invest in your natural gifts, your potential for growth is just so much higher. So this gives us a new motto to replace that old broken one. It's this: you cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you already are. It's so powerful, right? It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming a supercharged version of yourself. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how in the world do you figure out what you're actually good at? How do you even talk about it? Well, that's exactly the problem a guy named Don Clifton, people call him the father of strengths-based psychology, set out to solve with his team at Gallup. What they did was pretty incredible. They spent decades, analyzed millions of interviews with successful people in every job imaginable, and they boiled it all down. They found 34 common themes of talent. Basically, they created a whole new language, not for what's wrong with us, but for what's right with us. And these themes give us the words to describe our gifts. So, for example, there's achiever, that's that internal fire to get stuff done. Or empathy, the power to just feel what other people are feeling. Or futuristic, you're the person who is always dreaming about what could be. It's like a roadmap to your own personal operating system. All right, let's pull all this together. Now, a big question you might have is, so I'm just supposed to ignore my weaknesses? And the answer is no, not at all. This isn't about being oblivious. It's about being strategic. It's about managing those weaker areas so they don't trip you up while you focus on your superpowers. And there's a really practical 3-step way to do this. First, just know what they are. Be honest with yourself about what you're not naturally good at. Second, build guardrails. If you're not organized, make your calendar and your to-do list your best friends. Build systems so you don't have to rely on a talent you don't have. And third, this one is huge. Partner up. Find someone who is a rock star at the very thing you struggle with. That's not cheating. That's building a brilliant team. There's this old story, I think it was Mark Twain who told it, and it just perfectly sums this all up. A man gets to the pearly gates, and he asks St. Peter, "Hey, just curious, who was the greatest military general of all time?" St. Peter points over to this soul standing nearby. The man looks, and he's confused. He says, "Wait, that guy? I knew him back on Earth. He wasn't a general, he was just a regular laborer." And St. Peter just nods and says, "That's right. He would have been the greatest general of all time if he'd only been a general." Man, that story just gives me chills. It's such a powerful picture of wasted potential. And the scariest part is, so many of us live that story. We go through our whole lives with our greatest gifts still wrapped up inside. So I have to ask you, what potential inside of you is just waiting? What could you become if you stopped trying to fix what's wrong and started building on everything that's already right?